I grew up in a very political family. My father was a professor of political science and my mom was very involved with local and regional politics. So I would say there was a big measure of me that on first glance would say, follow in those footsteps. But as soon as I got into college, I realized that the creative process was something that I had to incorporate into what I did. And so I shifted to art and art history. My focus for a decade or more has been looking at renewable energy in the landscape. I'm a big believer in looking for solutions to move ourselves away from fossil fuels. And renewable energy, of course, is utilizing the energy that comes from the sun every single day. And that includes wind energy because that's part of the whole system. As soon as we start to do that, we take ourselves away from using fossil fuels that are hundreds of millions of years old. It's an imperfect process. We're still using resources to do that. There's still issues of durability, of recycling, all of that. But my goal is to really look at our attempts to come up with solutions to move us away from fossil fuels. The new book we're working on is called Atacama, Renewable Energy and Mining in the High Desert of Chile. It's a look at the rapidly growing renewable energy industry that is connecting up to the mining industry in Chile. About a decade ago, the entire mining industry was dependent on fossil fuel, importing coal, importing oil and natural gas. And we get a third of the world's copper from Chile. They have the largest known lithium reserves there. About 10% of the world's lithium comes from Chile. At the same time, there's some of the highest wind and solar potential in the world in the Atacama Desert. So when the cost point crossed, when renewable energy became less expensive than coal and diesel, then all of a sudden this industry started to bloom. And so what you're seeing in Chile is a rapid move and a pretty complete move by the mining industry to renewable energy. The nature of the project is such that in most cases, the renewable energy projects or plants or wind farms were physically separate from the mines. So the mines would buy the power, it would be transported through the grid. In very few cases was the solar energy plant on the site of the mine. At Mina Gabi in Chile, there's a project called Pampa Elvira, and it's a solar thermal project that makes the hot water for part of the copper refining process. It is part of the Codelco logo, which is the national copper company in Chile, but it evokes the female sign that we're all familiar with. So here's an object, a clearly man-made object that has a shine to it, that has an entirely different texture to it within the landscape of the copper mine. And I would say that series, shot within a half an hour of circling around this site, is one of my favorites because it really plays off of the beauty and the potential of renewable energy against kind of the very harshly used landscape when we mine. And they're playing off each other within that. It's a very early morning light as the light is just skimming across. And so I really love the group of images that came out from that shoot. I want a book to do more than just present a group of images. I want the design to be beautiful. I want there to be something that's intriguing about the design that draws you in, whether it's the way an image is presented on the cover or how the end papers support or intrigue you to enter the book. Ultimately, how the images are presented within the book, how they're paced, how the flow of the book is, the interplay between plates, photographic plates, and text, and whether there's a contrast between those or whether they're integrated. I've tended to let those be their own entity apart from each other. And I like the notion that you enter a photographic book first through the images. They call to you, they beckon to you, they intrigue you, or not. But you work through them and you may understand them, you may not understand them. You may understand the sequencing or how they were put together or not. And then the text, by being at the back, allows you to learn something more about the subject. And then you can re-enter that photographic book and look at those photographs differently, maybe with an entirely different perspective or paradigm than you had initially. So the photo book ends up being a unique object that assembles a project in a very distinct way and lets it sit there in time for people to look at ahead. Exhibitions are ephemeral. Editorial publications are ephemeral. But a book sits there and lets people look at it 5 years, 10 years, 50 years down the road.